Last week, on the Lords of Grantham podcast, we talked Season 2, Episode 3 of Poldark. In that episode, George looked to get even with Judd for changing his story while Ross was on trial, so he sent Tankard and some boys to assault Judd in the woods, and we thought Judd was dead until he went missing, and then we found out he wasn't dead. Wild episode. And also, Francis, he's in a good mood. We'll see if that translates to this week on Season 2, Episode 4 of Poldark.
You're looking at the real deal now. Gonna kick this sorry ass out on the street. What you got? You used to think you owned the street. We'll pack your bag till your ass is dead meat. Victory is sweet. Bring it on. Here's a receipt. Bring it on. What you gonna do?
And we're back again, Season 2, Episode 4 of Poldark.
That we are, Dave. Just trucking along over here. What's good with you, Dave, this week? What's going on?
Not too much. What about you, Corey? Is there anything to report?
Well, I mean, we know a portion of our audience listens to us through Spotify, and today they released their Spotify Wrapped report, and so we got some interesting stats, about listenership. I don't know how much people are interested in hearing us talk about that. But I thought it'd be fun just for a moment to walk through what the numbers are about our podcast, and Dave, versus what your expectations are.
Okay, sure. Walk us through.
Okay. Well, so apparently we have 356 followers on Spotify. I don't even know if we should share that information, but I think that's a pretty good number considering how niche we are, and that's only speaking to Spotify, right?
Yeah. Now, how many people use Spotify for podcasts? I feel like it's not the primary.
Right. There's a lot of them to choose from. And I think that is maybe a quarter, third. I don't know. Less than that. It's not the entirety of our audience. But Dave, guess where the majority of our listeners are coming from?
The UK?
No. That is second.
Is America?
It's America's number one, baby.
Okay, cool.
USA.
Surprise.
Canada is actually a little bit further down the list because in front of them we got Norway and Germany. So shout out to our listeners over there. Spain, Italy. We appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Guess what artists they're listening to, Dave?
Them? Our fans?
Yes. Spotify gives that information of what kind of music they're listening to.
So I just feel like I'm going to lob the ball. Like Taylor Swift?
That's one of them, yeah.
Who else do we have? The Beatles, maybe?
That's true. That is another one.
Okay, let me see if I can guess one more off the top. Adele?
Yeah, honestly, it's as British as you can get. The other two are Ed Sheeran and Elton John. So
okay, I wouldn't have gotten Elton John. I might have gotten Ed Sheeran if I spent some time marinating on it. But
we definitely got a specific audience here, so respect to that. But the big thing is they shared new stats from this year, and so Dave, we're up over 100% in terms of hours listened and listenership from people. 31 countries around the world. So thank you to everyone out there.
Oh yeah.
37% of our fans listen between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. So when you say 37%...
So during the workday.
Yeah, but that's only 37%. So pretty much everyone just listens around the clock at different hours.
Yeah, that's a broad period of time. It's not like 11 to 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not like 11 to 12.
No. It's funny. We have a small audience, at least with Spotify for sure. And you could tell with this rap that they were trying to cushion things or make it sound nicer than it is. So we have 9 people who have listened to most of our episodes.
Okay.
7 rang in the New Year with us. They listened to us on New Year's Day. 5 listened to us on their birthday. And then 43 people listened to us more than any other podcast. So we'll take what we can get.
Well, I threw it down on the Twitter because I think 'tis the season to start getting app messages. Mm-hmm. If we are on your Spotify top list, tag us on either Instagram or Twitter or Facebook and let us know, and you will be entered to win some Lords of Grantham merchandise.
Absolutely.
We needed a good holiday giveaway, so I feel like this is it is the season for Spotify Wrapped.
Any listenership is beyond any expectation that we ever had for this podcast. We thought we'd get just our friends, and then it's taken on a life of its own, so we are truly appreciative.
Oh, yeah, and I will say to anybody who doesn't listen on Spotify that might want in on this giveaway, leave us a 5-star review and share it in the same tweet, Instagram story. Just let us know. Yeah, you will be entered as well. As, our algorithm needs help, and we love the, sharing the love. So
absolutely,
we want to pay it forward in the holiday season. Give away some merch.
Yeah. So I think we can just get to the podcast, right? We can just get to talking to Poldark.
Nothing new in the Downton world or the Crown world.
Well, the only thing was on the Crown is that Dominic West's son, Senan West, will actually play Prince William.
Wow.
So, some people say nepotism is dead, but they'd be wrong.
They'd be wrong. That's right.
Yep.
So let's just get into Poldark then.
Yeah, let's just drop that story and just get into Poldark. Season 2, episode 4.
One for the books.
A lot happened, and they do the classic thing this episode that I'm getting accustomed to, where they will literally have conversations, intersperse it with other conversations that are going on, and then go back to the one that was in the other scene just to keep you on your toes. So in terms of approaching this episode, I think it worked a little bit last week, Dave, but maybe we just talk about plot lines as they're happening. Yeah,
so I think the easiest one to get out of the way first would be the doctor. Good old Dr. Dwight.
With sweet Caroline.
Bum, bum, bum.
Good times never felt so good, right?
Well, comes at a bit of a cost, I feel like. But this is a very strange subplot, because I think it's supposed to send us one way, and it winds up doing the opposite.
It takes a long way around to getting us. It
takes a long way to a conclusion I don't think is necessarily what any of us want.
Oh, okay. Well, walk us through it, Dave. Why isn't it something you want? Do you not believe in love?
I don't believe this is love.
Okay.
So why can't this starts
Dave?
with...
Why can't this be between Dwight and Caroline?
It's got what it takes. I don't think it's got what it takes.
You don't think it's got what it takes, obviously.
No. So, this begins with Caroline sort of asking Dwight why he's not coming to visit. Mm-hmm. And he says, I got a lot going on. I'm busy. There's some kind of epidemic going around. We need... These people aren't... They're sick and they're not eating fruits. Mm-hmm. They're drinking gin instead. And I don't know if I'm going to get this exactly right chronologically how it works out. But she basically says, yeah, but who cares? Rich people are going to be fine. I'm rich. I'm going to be just fine.
He hasn't been around to see her since she had her throat scare last episode. Mm-hmm. And so she mails him a guinea to come check on her.
Yeah, so she
needs to do a follow-up.
That's the hook to get him in.
Right.
So then he looks in her throat, and he's like, all right, it's good. And there's some tension there.
Oh, there's some sexual tension there where he says, open your mouth wider.
Yep.
It's absolutely some kind of, innuendo going on there.
But then she does, and he's like, okay, gotta go. I gotta get out of here.
But then you have a brief conversation where, she's talking. They're talking about the workers down at the mine because he's like, they need my help. They're sick. And she's like, well, if they weren't drinking gin all the time and eating oranges instead. And he's like, well, don't you know that oranges are a lot more expensive than gin? And she was like, well, they're lost. They're their problem, not mine.
Yeah, she goes, they're poor, I'm rich, I'm cool. And we see...
It really sets her up... and I get where you're coming from here, Dave. It really sets her up to be like hoit-to-do, She's really, full of herself for a second there.
Yeah, and Dwight walks away. He's like, okay, this is enough. I'm out of here. Like, he's a man of the people. Mm-hmm. And we see that she is betrothed or whatever to this Unwen fella who's a real chump.
Yep.
And so they keep referring to each other and all this stuff. And there's another sequence where Caroline sees Dwight with a bushel of older apples that are on their way to rotting, and she says something like, hey, what are you doing with those? And he's like, not beggars can't be choosers. And he means it literally, because these people are begging for their lives at this point, some of them.
Yeah.
And the episode continues. We come back to these two, and the Caroline talks to her father about getting some kind of allowance, some kind of money. She says, shouldn't I be able to gamble like one of you boys?
Right, because we know that she's like entrusted £20,000 if she marries this Unwin guy. That's why he seems like he's into her, according to her, how she sees it. But she doesn't actually have any money to her name. So she'd like to have some money to throw around.
Her father, or whoever it is, Ray Penvenin, is like, what are you talking about? Like, you have all your needs waiting on you. And she's like, yeah, but I need a little bread. I need a little spending money. I want to gamble.
Uh-huh.
And then on the DL, Dr. Dwight gets a cart full of oranges.
A bushel of oranges. And it's because she's got some money. She likes to gamble. And her game is buying up oranges to give to people who may need them.
And Dwight kind of figures this out.
Real quick. Like, they don't even waste any time. He's just, like, off to talk to her. He's like, I knew it was you.
And he's like, thank you so much for doing this. Like, you didn't have to. And then we see Unwin again. Mm-hmm. And Unwin's like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's going on? And George is with him, and they're like, all right, let me get out of here. Dr. Dwight does. And then it comes back around to she buys him another thing, and then she leaves. Another bushel of oranges.
Right. I mean, because, George is there to see the whole thing going down, and he's like, what's this? And she's just like, I'm just being nice. And it was nice knowing you, Dwight. And I guess is she going off with Unwin, or where's she going off to? She's going off to...
I think she's going off with Ray.
Ray?
They're going back to London. She's like, you really couldn't expect me to live here forever.
Right.
It's sort of the opposite of Bingley in Pride and Prejudice, who's like, I want to be in the middle of nowhere. She's like, I want to be back in society.
I mean, they show it with the way she was always wearing that bright red dress in the middle of like all this dourness. But yeah, she is absolutely going away. Maybe to marry this Unwin guy, we'll see. But she bids him farewell, and that's
she's like, I wish we could have been something. Could have been something.
A lot of teeing things up, But Dave, why doesn't it work for you?
Because I don't think she's not genuinely buying these oranges to help people. She's doing it to impress him, and
right.
I have yet to be proven wrong. Mm-hmm. And we know he's a weak-willed man because of what he did to Mark's wife.
Right.
And so I'm not saying that he doesn't have a physical attraction to her, and there's clearly the tension is there, but when she shows her true colors and said, like, poor people are poor, I'm rich and privileged, what do I care about that? Mm-hmm. He leaves. Yeah. And then he never seems to tell her, like, hey, you're not doing this for the right reason. I'm not in this for you. Like, I think it's cool, but, like, look. And I think there might also be some unresolved trauma internally with him about what happened with Mark's wife.
I think we're reading a little bit too deep there.
I don't think so.
I think you are onto something, though, where, like, he is very weak-willed, because he's very stern when he meets her this episode, where he's like, I don't got time for you and your throat. I got people who really need to be taken care of. She sends him some oranges, and all of a sudden he's changing his tune, like, oh, this girl's great. She's a real winner. I don't think
he's saying I don't think he's trying to, because he doesn't make an effort to get her to stick around. He definitely
seems sad to see her go all of a sudden.
Well, I mean, she's a looker. She's walking around town in a red dress. He's got to hang around with these people with these weird mouths.
That's how it always was when we were growing up, Dave. When a looker was leaving town, we were just sad to see them go.
And they're always looking at us saying, you guys could have had something. We're like, oh, man, I don't. Well, in our case, it was like, probably not.
No, never had a chance. But it's funny because there is like a brief interaction where Caroline's on her horse and she passes by Ross by the cliffside. And they're supposed to like have an interaction, but it really doesn't do anything. It's just like them two acknowledging that they know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens. But when do we see Caroline again? How long until we see her again?
I don't know. I feel like if the book wants us this to be nothing, it might be nothing. This show could have her gone forever.
Yeah, or be like next week, oh, you've been gone for a while. It's like, really? She left last episode, but...
I mean, we saw by Demelza's stomach that the time has passed.
Real quick. 9 months went by real fast, so I understand why Caroline has been there long enough to be like, peace. And we'll get to that in a second, but I think the other low-hanging fruit... A lot of these other plot lines start to tie together, but the Blamey one we can talk about.
Yeah.
Verity.
Well, yeah, the Blamey and Verity we can talk about. The rest of the Blamey stuff has to get lumped in with the rest of it.
Yeah.
But we finally get some time with Blamey and Verity after wanting it forever.
Yeah, we haven't seen him in a while. And what is it? So there's been people who have been diagnosed with Penang, so Blamey needs to help them out. So, they're around town, and Blamey also has family coming to visit, too.
His children.
His daughter and son. We see Verity interacting with Demelza. She lets her know that she's missing the family, and, she's around a lot of Blamey, but, she really misses the family.
And she's trying to get pregnant.
Yeah. I think we even see her briefly interact with Elizabeth on the town, where she's like, could we, become good with Francis again? Is there a way back to getting in his good graces? Francis is walking around town at the same time with this new hat that he has, this new sailor hat.
It's his post-suicide hat.
Yeah.
Post-suicide attempt hat.
He's letting people know he's alive and feeling great. But he spots him and he's like, I'll never be friends with that guy. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. No way, Jose.
So Blamey leaves Verity at home alone for a while, and his daughter Esther comes to visit.
Mm-hmm.
Esther wants nothing to do with Verity. Verity's trying to be good with this girl. Blamey left Verity with almond sugar and chocolate to kind of win them over, to bake and do stuff, and this Esther just is like, where's my father? You're not my mother.
Very stepchild to step-parent situation going on. And
just as she's at her wit's end, Blamey's son walks in the door and it's like, who the hell are you? I didn't even
James.
Yeah, didn't even know he had a son, really. And he's just like, oh, I'm excited to meet you. Mother, you're my mother, right?
Yeah, he's like,
aren't we like the same age?
This is a full-grown man, and he goes, it's not often in life that I get a new mother. It's like, okay, buddy.
Yeah, slow your roll there. You got something going on there. Yeah, and he's like, don't worry about Esther. She's just kind of miserable. And that's pretty much it. This is such a simple storyline.
I'm sure it'll unfold more if these kids stay around.
So. Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see Blamey had kids already. I mean,
we know he allegedly killed his wife.
That's true. At the same time, though, he looked like a loner for the most part.
Well, he's someone whose reputation is that he allegedly murdered his wife. I don't think he's really
has many friends.
Beloved about town.
Sure. But yeah, we could tie it up that, Blamey does run into Francis later in the episode, and there's a change of heart, and now it looks like Blamey may be around to stay.
Yeah, and we'll get to why there's a change of heart as we keep going.
Dave, how do you feel about seeing more of him and Verity around town?
Good. Agatha says early in the episode, Verity should be here.
She should. She is family.
Yeah, and it's like Francis is a new man, but he's still kind of aloof. He's finding his confidence, and I feel like this episode does a lot for his confidence. For sure.
Do we want to talk about that now, or do we want to talk about... I guess we could talk about all the stuff that entails, huh?
Sure, yeah.
Well, we can work our way there. But let's start off with Ross. The guy's still, as much as they got their money together last week to pay off loans, the man's still struggling with money. And we start the episode with seeing a bunch of men walking by the cliffside. And why are those men being walked around, Dave?
These are alleged free traders who are being locked up for illegally going by the ports and whatnot to sell goods without paying the proper fees.
Yeah. And as we see in this episode, a Mr. Trencrum comes to visit Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And he has an offer for him. That
he wants to use the Ross's port,
right?
The beach.
It's the last inlet that has that doesn't have any patrols. People looking out, for stuff coming in. So he he proposes an offer for Ross to turn a blind eye to the tune of 200 pounds per cargo and salt. At first he offers 50 pounds and Ross is like 200. And he's like, we're barely going to turn a profit. And Ross is like, that's the deal.
This is such a weird scene because Ross is like, this is what I'm saying. And the guy's like, come on, man, be reasonable. And Demelza is like looking at Ross like, okay, Ross, like, don't do this. Come on now, like,
you don't want
look at this guy. You got to be. The way that I interpreted Demelza in the scene was she was like, don't gouge the man, like,
don't ask
do
for
that.
salt. Don't be unreasonable.
And then he just basically is like, all right, cool. There's no negotiation. It's like, here's my price. Here's my price. Done.
Ross is grinning the whole time during the negotiation. He knows he's got the upper hand because he's the only inlet that can, potentially let them, bring their cargo over. But yeah, Demelza is not happy. She's like, whatever pounds you get from this, it's not going to buy you out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And Ross is like, I can't do anything about this. My hands are tied. And why are his hands tied, Dave?
Because it's going south with Wheel Leisure.
Absolutely. So there's another meeting with the shareholders where we'd seen them in the mine. They blew a hole open, and they feel like they're getting somewhere. They just need to keep going a little bit. But
yeah, what is it called? They're trying to get to the... I wrote it down. Where is it in my notes? The Trevorgy lines.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of the halfway mark between this old mine that Ross's family owned and Wheel Leisure.
Yeah.
But Tankard is like,
Right. He makes the point of like, we've been investing in you for a while and we have nothing to show, so why should we continue to do that now?
Mm-hmm.
And he actually manages to convince a couple others to vote his way, to say, nay, we're not going to spend any more money on you. You're going to do what you can with what you got here.
And we also see that Tankard and by proxy George have come across basically their stakes are much higher than they were in earlier episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So when they come to these meetings, their vote weighs heavier than a lot of these other guys.
Yeah.
So
they got was it Dr. Choke or not Dr. Choke, someone else's shares. So
some other guy.
they have almost a controlling majority nearly of the shares almost. And so when this proposition comes to him about becoming a port for and taking illegal cargo, Ross can't not take it because business is just not happening with Wheel Leisure, and his hands are tied with how much George owns of the whole place.
Now, should we circle back to Demelza's fishing just to get this story in the ether as we discussed?
Well, we should say that we do see a scene where the people come to bring their cargo. Ross doesn't necessarily turn a blind eye. He actively helps them in. He goes out there to let them in.
But he tells Prudy and Ginny and Demelza to close the blinds.
Right. they don't see anything. How long until this blows up in his face, Dave?
I think it depends on if we come back to this. I think this... I don't know exactly how...
coming back to this.
Well, I mean, how will Ross come back to this? Because if he can... There's no handshake agreement that this has happened. This is all happening on the DL.
I don't think you introduce McNeil again the last episode and have him hang out with Demelza for him not to reappear when this stuff is going down. Otherwise, it'd be like two odd setups or one-offs to lead to nothing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
just curious if Ross gets off scot-free or the property, if these guys just get caught on his land and then they're mad at him.
Mm-hmm.
So does Ross get in trouble, or do these free traders get in trouble, and then they turn on Ross?
It's a sticky situation. Depends how things go, where Ross is when they come around. If they catch his hand in the cookie jar, we got to see.
Well, I'm hoping that Ross doesn't have to put his hand in the cookie jar anymore.
I hope we don't have to see him on trial again or in a courtroom again. We've got enough courtroom scenes on the show already, I think.
Oh yeah.
So I'm set on that for now.
But as we were saying, Demelza is fishing.
Yes,
because Ross is not a fan.
There's only half a fish left on ice.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's like later in the episode.
Oh, okay.
Initially in the episode, she's fishing, and Ross is like, "You're too pregnant to be out in the middle of the water." Fishing.
He has a point. She's very pregnant.
And the two of them basically, their entire interactions this episode are Ross being like, "You are putting too much at risk in this situation," and then Demelza's like, "You always put things at risk, and I'm not allowed to stop you."
Mm-hmm.
And while I do agree with Demelza's sentiment, there's a baby on the line right now, and I think that Ross makes a decent point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. That's the funny thing, is Demelza is just as headstrong as Ross is in a lot of ways, which is why they're perfect for each other, but also why they can also butt heads.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, she does go on that boat yet again.
Yep,
and
she goes fishing, and then she starts having contractions.
Yeah. Not good. Not doing great out there. She actually is able to kind of row her way back a lot of the way, pretty impressively.
Most of the way, like Ross only has to wade in about ankle deep to get to the boat,
right?
To get her back.
He doesn't have to do much. When he, because she wants to keep rowing, and he's like, "No, stop!" He takes the oar out of the boat and tosses it. It's like, "You want to do that, man? That's
and he just leaves the boat.
Material.
There's a load of fish in there.
Yeah, but he carries her ashore. He's not happy with her.
They're cussing at each other. They're having a scrap, a verbal scrap.
Yep. But it's all okay, because you know why?
She's there's the good line where she's like, "I'm gonna kill you, Ross Poldark," and he's like, "I'm gonna whoop you up, but first you gotta have our baby, and then we'll do
this. Then I'll be good."
And she has the baby.
Yeah, she does.
It's a boy.
Dwight delivers it again. The jack of all trades, Dr. Dwight Ennis.
Yeah.
He comes downstairs and he said to Ross, he gives him the okey doke, like, your wife looked really good, and the baby looks great.
Hey. He said it. It's true.
It happened. It absolutely happened. He's got a son now. We got a son in the picture.
Yep.
So congratulations to the Poldarks.
Yeah, and I think, does that circle us back to the rest of the Wheel Leisure
business?
drama?
Yeah, because let's bring in Francis to the picture here.
Yeah.
What's the man doing in his front yard, Dave?
He's got, like, I forget what the term is. He's got a stick that he's looking for. Mm-hmm. They say it's a metal detector. Right.
He's got those like the fishing rod, the rod or whatever that you call, that should hopefully, help alert him to some gold or something. You see people at the beach with this kind of stuff all the time. Yeah, I don't know what the exact word is, but are you finding it, Dave?
A dowsing rod is what it's called.
That's what it is. Yes, that is exactly it. And what do you find with a dowsing rod, Dave?
You're supposed to find water, but he's looking for metal.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I feel like a dowsing rod has like a little extender thing at the end. This one is just like a triangle that he's carrying around.
Yeah, if you look at it like it's like a stick.
Yeah,
but
there's
like
something at the end of it that points you to something. I thought.
Yeah, I think this one did. It's like a wishbone shaped stick.
I like the idea that Francis is so misbegotten, he doesn't even know the right dowsing rod to use. He's just using a triangle that leads him nowhere. He doesn't even realize it.
And Agatha is the voice of reason in this scene, where she's like, "Hey, what's he up to out here?" And Elizabeth is like on duty, taking care of this senile old lady. Like, he's just
he's happy. Don't worry about it. He's just happy. For
it. Yeah, but he's living his dream, kinda. Mm-hmm. And we all just to circle back to an anecdote we forgot about, in the scene where Dr. Dwight is talking to Caroline in like the alleyway, George's response, speaking of him being a jack of all trades, George is like, "Hey, don't you have a dog you can go take care of?"
Yeah, because they're not into he's not into them romancing up, because clearly Dwight is below him.
But yes, now back to Francis. Is there
Francis,
anything really?
I mean, we see Francis around town in this episode, as we saw with like him seeing Blamey and not being down with him. But he's kind of like in the background until Ross has this idea of like, I need to talk to Francis, because what happens is after he commits to opening up his inlet for transporting cargo, he has another meeting for Wheel Leisure, where George is all of a sudden taking Tankard's place. He's
George, like the Vince McMahon music hits, and George walks in. He's like, "No more sending the surrogates or the general managers or the commissioners.
Yeah,
the boss is here.
No more Darth Vader. The Emperor is here. I'm taking over."
Not that Tankard's Darth Vader.
No, he's Darth something. He needs some sunlight. Dude is pale, super pale. It's not even that Tankard's really doing a bad job. It's just like George is like, I need to do this.
George is like, now's my moment, because there's another sequence in this episode where they like. Ross and George, like, cross paths on the
right.
horseback.
They're riding horses, and they cross paths. And because Ross accuses him early in this episode, like, so not trying to kill any people who did you wrong again, like alluding to Judd, and then George is like, why would you say that? And Ross is like, don't you try that again. And George is like, is that a threat? And then Ross just gallops away. Just
like,
maybe it wasn't. Maybe I will kill you. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm just loading a gun with your name on it. Who knows? But that's enough to put George on edge. Be like,
he got to put the pressure down.
Right. This.
And we also see
deal with this.
There's a George makes another bold move in this episode, where I believe it is Aunt Agatha convinces Elizabeth to sort of go talk to George because there's still trouble with George and the Francis side of the Poldark family.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth goes over, and George is not great.
No, he wants to be friends with her still, and all that.
And he's like, look, your family is on the hook for some you-know-what. There's some serious issues going on, but I'm pretty sure if we can be friends, we can put this all behind us. And he says our friendship will grow.
Yeah.
And to Elizabeth's credit, she's like, no, I don't think I'm ever coming back to this place again.
No, she's not into it.
I'm a little shocked that this is the way this story went, because I feel like this was set up to be something more, and I'm sure this will continue.
Right. Well, I can't figure it out because, as we were getting to it, George shows up, Ross storms off in a huff. He's annoyed. He's got an idea though for a plan, and his idea is to now go towards Wheel Grace, the place that their father owned, and mine that there, because there's nothing left for him to find in Wheel Leisure, at least without George profiting from it. So his plan is to sell his shares in Wheel Leisure, cash out, let George take it because he'll buy it at a high price. He really wants it, and then they'll take that money and put it towards Wheel Grace. But his idea to see this through is to join forces with Francis, who has possession of Wheel Grace and has some funds.
No, well, Ross owns Wheel Grace. That's his father's abandoned mine. Nobody's there.
Oh,
but he just doesn't have the capital to get that water pump.
Right.
To clean it out.
That's what it is.
To make it usable.
Yeah. By the way, though, his idea is to work with Francis, and the entire time they're having that conversation, we see Elizabeth listening in, but she seems traumatized or not too excited about this news.
Yeah, but because this is pretty much after the sequence where George is like, yeah, the only way we're going to really be cool here is if you sleep with me.
I mean, he doesn't say that exactly.
But that's effectively what he says to her.
Is it? I didn't read it that way.
Oh, yeah. He's like, he essentially says, like, I really think that our issues could be a lot worse, but if you start coming around, they can be a lot better. And I think we should be friends, and I think our friendship should get greater and bigger. And, like, he's heavily implying they should spend time together.
Sure. Yeah,
and
I
then
think he just wants to get back into
the way
good
she
graces.
leaves is very much disgust. Like, I don't want anything to do with what you're up to, which, that's enough.
Understandable. But she doesn't seem to be happy though with like what Francis and Ross were talking about. She seems like
I think she knows that I don't want to. She did not screw up, but I think she knows that the long arm of George will reach into this situation.
Oh, he'll try to mess things up for them somehow.
Yeah, he'll call back that debt that goodwill gesture of the 4,000 pounds or whatever he gave after the Sanson situation.
I did find it I did like Ross's plotting there, to sell off his shares to George, because like I like the idea that all of a sudden like everything about the show has been Wheel Leisure. Now it's just like nope, that's not the answer. Just going to drop it. But
it's a good little scene.
Yeah,
the scene of Ross and Francis talking about the plan. I was smiling ear to ear. I was like, this is the whole
Francis
last
is smiling this entire episode. He's just happy to be there. He's happy to be alive.
And Elizabeth is like, oh no, this man.
They have such a solid handshake too.
Oh yeah, it's like the mega powers.
Yeah, they're coming together. The one thing though I would say is, wouldn't George for a second and be like, why is Ross or why are they selling so many shares all of a sudden? Like, wouldn't he?
Well, I mean, George figures it out really quickly. He figures it out by the end of the episode.
But then also, like, if he's that smart, would he just not buy it?
But he doesn't know who's selling.
Okay. Yeah.
In the barroom scene, which we'll get to shortly,
Right.
George is like, Ross, I just picked up more shares, and then Ross is like, oh, it's you who bought them from me, and he's like, oh, he puts the pieces together.
I think he kind of has a sneaking suspicion. Well, he already had a suspicion because, well, as we see though, Francis is going to tell Ross, like, by the way, there's something about the past you need to know, and Ross is like, what's the past is the past. It doesn't matter. We're good together. We're good to go. Don't worry about it. We're good. And then that's it. Then the next scene happens. George already knows though that he's planning to pursue Wheel Grace. He's already put together that it was Ross who sold the shares.
Yeah, his people tell him.
They move fast. It was like how did they find out so fast? But yeah, George drops the bomb real quick on him. Like, that old Carnmore copper plan that you had about smelting all the stuff you found. It was Francis who told me who was involved in that.
Francis told me all that stuff. How does that make you feel, boy?
Yeah, so Ross grabs George by the collar. George then whacks Ross over the head with his cane pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Ross gets a few blows in, but then, we've seen George has been training for episodes. I wonder if that's in the books, if that's something they had to add for the show.
George is like sparring with some...
Yeah, because George is so small.
Grappler.
Would people ever buy him actually fighting and taking down Ross? If we have enough scenes of him training, then maybe we'll buy it. We'll buy that. I
think it's an interesting sequence because he fights like a punk. Like, he tries to gouge his eyes out.
Yeah, no, he's cheap. So he kind of like spears Ross onto the table after taking a few blows, and then tried to gouge his eyes out, almost like Blade Runner-esque that he's doing there. It's hard to watch for a second.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and Ross somehow, just with his natural strength, Ross just pushes him off him, and then Ross just starts to beat him down, like repeatedly,
he's throwing him around,
punching and kicking him. And there's a guy off screen during this entire scene saying, "Hey, stop! Hey!" We don't ever see him. He's just like, "Hey, stop!"
He's the guy who owns the Red Lion. It's his and then basically Ross just like throws him through a small table.
Yeah, he really.
And the guy's like, "You got to go," and Ross is like, "Point proven, baby.
I'll beat your ass any day of the week, bro." And he's out of there. And then we see, after we just heard Ross saying, like, the past is past, doesn't matter, him sitting on a seawall next to Dwight being like, I don't know if I can ever trust him again. It's like, you just said the past is the
partnership
past.
is doomed if I can't trust him. It's like,
you didn't even want to know what what Francis wanted to tell you. Francis was going to tell you this to earn your trust, and now you're just like, I don't know if I can trust him.
And wasn't the implication that Ross is like, oh, something happened between Francis and George, and that's why Francis is so riddled with guilt.
Right.
It's like, why is he shocked by this?
Yeah, no, he should have like put it together real quick there. It's so silly.
But then another great Ross power play happens, where old Captain Blamey starts walking by.
He just kind of walks into the camera. It's just like, oh, Blamey's here,
and he's like, hey, Doc Dwight, go get Francis to walk down here. I see he's like 100 feet away.
Yeah.
And then Francis walks up. He's like, "Oh, hello, Ross. Good to see." Oh, you.
I like how we also get like a stern look from Blamey, knowing what Ross's plan is. He's like, "Oh no, he's going to make me interact with that Francis guy again." The guy almost shot me and killed me.
And then Francis is like, "I don't want anything to do with this, Ross. I don't know what you're doing." And Ross just says, "This is your last moment to wipe out the past." And he gives him a look
because he's like, "I know what you didn't want to tell me."
He's like, "I know what you did last summer, bro." Like,
yep. And Francis is like, "Oh, heave-ho, Harry-ho, welcome. Yeah, we're all good here. All's good."
He's like, "All right, Blamey."
He's got that new hat on. He's feeling himself. He's feeling good.
Yeah.
And they're friends now. They're good.
They're friends. There's a scene where they're at Wheel Grace at the unofficial opening. All what? We got Demelza, Ross, Elizabeth, Francis, Blamey, and Verity. It's like the team is back.
Yeah. They're popping champagne. They're ready to get to mining, and we have a sweet moment where we know everything's good with Ross and Demelza again, where he's like, well, this was called after, this is Wheel Grace after the mother, who was like the North Star. you're no North Star, Demelza. You're
the dog star.
Yeah, you're the dog that picked you out. You're the dog star.
That's Garrick.
So that is the name of that's what he's going to refer to the mine as, right? The dog star.
We'll see.
All right. Well, there you have it, Dog Star. And it's funny when I think of Dog Star, though. I think of was the band with Keanu Reeves in it, from like the '90s. So it's just like, okay, an interesting choice of a name.
Aiden Turner's a big fan. He made that a contingency in the plot.
Yeah, way back, he saw it that way. So that's the whole episode, pretty much. Judd we don't see him. He's been missing. Prudy doesn't know where he is, or she can't really speak for him. He's just kind of out on his own.
Yeah, she's basically saying like, he's kind of reveling in the fact that he didn't die.
Yeah. Prudy's
and
definitely
is it implied that he might be kind of on the DL hiding from Tankard and that roughneck?
And was it we do get the scene of like Ross shouting at Prudy like, "You let Demelza go, and Garrick too. Where's the dog?"
Oh, and Ginny's like, "I tried my best, I tried," and he lets her off completely.
What a lucky actress, just to like have a plot line in season 1. Now she just has to hang around in the background and collect checks.
Oh, Ginny?
Good for her.
Gracie O'Brien?
Yeah. Good for her.
I mean, on Agatha, Mon Mothma's cashing those checks. She's doing the best work.
You know what's one other thing, too, that's interesting is the way Ross is like, I'm going to cash out of that mine. What about that dude who like hung with you this whole time, believing in you and finding stuff? You know, you're just like leaving him like
I don't think he's leaving anybody high. Are you talking about Captain Henshaw?
Yeah.
I don't think he's leaving them high and dry. Or Zachy at the same,
right,
those
Zachy.
guys.
What a name, Zachy.
They're still work, and I feel like under George's reign, it will still be profitable because George is a
I don't know. We do see George at the end of the episode, and people don't seem too pleased with him there as like their new boss, kind of. And
but
they're
Ross
still
still does have shares in Wheel Leisure. Like he only sold half his shares.
Okay.
So he still has a seat at the table.
Well, George, he doesn't seem to care too much about the employees there or anything.
We'll see. I think they're still.
I do like
paid.
that he's just there enough to see, like, what are you doing with the oranges here, Caroline? Get out of here.
It's just the long arm of Ross Poldark is reached into the world of everything, from Caroline to the doctor to even his old staff.
Yep.
He's unstoppable.
So was this a good episode, Dave?
It was a fantastic episode. There was a fight.
That fight, honestly, I think we undersold the fight. The fight was a freaking bar brawler.
I would say it was like 2 minutes too.
It was a slobber knocker. I thought George was so dirty going for the eyes. Like, I just love that once Ross got the upper hand, he didn't hold back. He just kept kicking him when he was down. Like, I don't care.
And I like that's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. Also, who do you think really started the fight? I mean, Ross grabbed him by the collar, but then George did the cheap thing where he knocked him over the head with his cane.
Yeah, because I don't think Ross would have hit him further. Ross would have just snarled in his face.
Right. He was frustrated at the time, trying to figure out like what are you trying to say here about Francis? And yeah,
that was like they live like they just like they brawl.
It kept going. I love it. It's great. But it does look like George's training is paying off. So I hope Ross does like some work to kind of stay on his toes.
I mean, I think that was Ross not expecting to fight. I think Ross knowing he's going to throw down. He's going to
got the upper hand on him.
I think he'd do one shot kill to George.
We did see again George with the like putting his golden gun into like his drawer in this episode. That thing's going to get fired at some point on this show. You know it.
It's the smoking gun has to be smoking at some point.
Yeah, that is the Chekhov's gun. So, and also they made great progress with this mine. They said like part of it was underwater, but now we're ready to get to work on it. Next episode, the thing's gonna be banging out some metal, maybe gold there. Also, I did like the call back to like, isn't that what Mark said that one time? There's something over there.
And they should have shot a Mark.
Yeah, and it's like I didn't even put that together.
I thought they were gonna find Mark living in the mine. I really thought that's how that episode was gonna end.
He's like, he's got to come back somehow. He comes back with Caroline. He's married.
Oh man, imagine.
That'd be great. Well, let's get to the power rankings. Dave, who's going down for you?
At number 3 going on, I got Caroline.
Okay.
Because like I said before, she's not in it for the right reasons, and I think she, even walking away, thinks that she's doing the right thing for a right cause. She's doing something good, but she's not doing it for the right reason. And she's just looking to be with this man who, as great as Dr. Dwight is, he's not that great.
He's weak of heart.
He's got a bad reputation.
He's a handsome man.
Yeah.
Well, number 3 going down, I got Wheel Leisure.
Oh,
like,
it's not
Ross
great.
is just like cutting his losses in a lot of ways. I know he may not have sold all of his shares necessarily. I need to check the notes on that, but
it was only 50%.
Okay. Either way, though, almost an admission of loss there. So it's tough, but you gotta choose your battles. So yeah, Wheel Leisure at number 3.
Thanks for coming.
And all those workers are sick too.
Yeah. Oh, the epidemic going around. I got the free traders at number 2.
Epidemic. Yeah. Oh yeah. What about those free traders?
We see a pack of them is already getting wrangled up to be arrested in the beginning of the episode, and then we see that this sort of deal that they strike with Ross, this one guy that they bring back, is not a very great deal. Like, it's not what they want.
Yeah.
And like you said, I don't think this is going to end well for the free traders.
No, for sure. So yeah, they'll follow back up with that for sure. I think so for sure. You'd think that having a child would change things again for Ross, but we'll see. Number 2, I got Demelza. She just gets put upon this whole episode, and then she finally gets the baby out, and things are okay, but she's just not happy with Ross, and he's not happy with her, and it's just her just being miserable for most of the episode.
Number 1 is obvious.
It's George.
It's George.
He took an L. A huge L.
The biggest, though, because he knows what's going on, but he doesn't have this control that he used to have.
And he's been trying to work out, trying to get strong, but you can only get so strong against a guy who is in the mine day in, day out, pounding away. So you tried, George, but you didn't get one over this week as much as you thought you did.
No, you did not.
Nope.
Well, who do you got going up?
I got Caroline at number 3, actually.
Really? Okay.
She makes a mark, makes an impression on Dwight, who wants nothing to do with her at the top of this episode, and she leaves him wanting more, which that's the key thing. You want to leave people wanting more. So kudos to her for turning it around.
More, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, who's going up for you?
I got Verity going up.
Okay.
Because she thinks she's really botching this whole thing with the stepdaughter, but then this jovial young James walks in, and then not to mention, she gets back into the family house. She can go home. Finally, Verity has come home. That's
true. She is coming home. I think that son is a little too happy to see her. I don't know what's going on there. He asked her for rum within the first few moments of meeting her.
He goes, "I got a mighty thirst."
Yeah, it's and she's like, "Yeah, for sure." It's this guy just may be a lush. He just comes in half cocked, "Oh hey."
She's terrified, and
okay.
I think Verity is a good character to have, good person for Demelza to bounce off of.
All right. Well, at number 2, I got Francis.
I got Francis at number 2 as well.
He's in the money. He's in business with a good man, and you can't keep a good man down. He's just so happy.
The scene of them making the plan is joyful. I think the two of them on the same page, even though Francis is definitely the macho man to Ross. Yeah. Ross is Hulk Hogan. It's
and to that point, the number 1 has got to be none other than
it's
Ross.
It's Ross.
He is the Hulkster. He puts down George. He hooks up with Francis. The man is in power, and he had a baby. I know Demelza delivered it, but he saved her, and then brought her ashore, and then got a baby.
That's right. Good. Understated that he had a baby.
Yep. So good for Ross. The guy is just unbeatable when it comes to fisticuffs. He really is.
I mean, we'll see. I feel like they need to bring in Braun Strowman. A heavy needs to come in.
Someone really big. So George hires someone really strong to take him down.
Maybe the Big Show. Let's see that happen.
The Mountain shows up. We'll see. But otherwise, that is this week on Poldark. I think we can just wrap it there early this week, Dave.
Yeah.
It's been a long night.
Indeed. We started a little later. We talked a lot about this epic episode of Poldark. That's fine.
Yeah, let's just go out and have a fight somewhere else. Let's go pick in a fight.
We'll brawl.
Let's do it. Yeah, exactly, at the fall brawl. It's still fall. Otherwise, you know where to find us: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, merch on TeePublic, and 5-star rating review if you so choose on iTunes, or listen to us on Spotify.
Yeah, and share that Spotify Wrapped with us. If we're made your top 5, you get a chance to win some merch. And if you're not on that, 5 stars on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, it'll all do some good for us.
We appreciate it.
All right. Well, until we meet again.